Okay, Emmy fans, let's talk about what's going to win Best Comedy Series here in September. I'm Tom O'Neill of Gold Derby with our managing editor, Chris Beachum, Daniel Montgomery, our senior editor, executive editor, Paul Sheehan, and Marcus Dixon, our senior editor. Now, Veep is way out front. It finally won last year. It's winning every year for Julie Louis-Dreyfus. There's an election going on involving a woman at the top of the Democratic ticket. It certainly seems precious and all the more prescient, I should say, and all the more relevant now. It's out in front for among the experts' predictions and our odds. Chris Beachum, is it just a foregone conclusion? What's going on?
I do think it's the definite front runner. I mean, coming off a comedy series win and Julia winning and other wins, and it's still overperformed at this year's Emmys in terms of nominations. So many directing and writing and all picking up Matt Walsh and things like that. So I think it's that way out front, but, you know, with a popular vote and 7 nominees and you only need X percentage to win, I mean, there are some shows right in the mix. Transparent is one. I think Blackish is one. That those are really close to Veep, I think.
And what Chris is saying is because now, for the first time at the Emmys, you just tick off your one choice. It isn't the ranking that we used to have. So you've got 7 nominees. You could see a show winning with 15% of the vote if the vote splits fairly evenly. So I don't think it's the slam dunk that it might have been. I think last year we kept talking over and over about the Modern Family fatigue. I got tired of hearing the words Modern Family, and so I think that Veep last year might have been sort of the inevitable alternative Modern Family, but there's lots of choices this year, and including, I think, Daniel, you wrote about the TCA Awards. What won Best Comedy Series from the critics just a few days ago?
Yeah, that went to Blackish, which I kind of wasn't expecting. You know, I know critics have been fond of that show, but it's a broadcast network show, and you know, critics usually like the edgy, and they had edgy options like Veep, like Silicon Valley, like Master of None that they could have gone for, and they went with the sort of traditional or the most traditional kind of broadcast sitcom, which you know is edgy in its own way. It's dealing a lot with very timely race issues on that show. So yeah, that's you know, I'm not predicting it, but it
could happen, right?
Yeah.
But come on, Daniel, isn't Blackish Modern Family in a different shade of of color, and also it's way up with nominations this year. Last year it just got Anthony Anderson, if I'm right, but now it's in for series. Now Tracy Ellis Ross, his co-star, is in. It's also nominated elsewhere, right? I mean, it's what we're seeing this year. Just those 3, but what we're seeing is a surge for the show this year, right?
Yeah, the show is definitely surging. But I feel like, you know, it's sort of on the rise. I think a lot of shows, it's good to start out kind of slow and then simmer up. And like if you're like Veep or like a Game of Thrones on the drama side, then when you're 4 or 5 seasons deep and you're continually building up the support, you can eventually win. I think Blackish is still on that upward trend. So if it doesn't win this year, it could pick up extra nominations next year or the year after. I think we could definitely be seeing an eventual Best Comedy Series winner, if not this year.
Yeah, early on I was saying Blackish, watch for Blackish this year. It's going to really explode. And it did get the Comedy Series nomination, but it should have got writing. It should have got directing. It should have got other things. It's been 14 years since Friends won in 2002 Best Comedy Series without a writing or directing nomination. Ever since then, every comedy series winner has had a writing or a directing nomination. So that's why I have Blackish.
And for the 30 years prior. Friends is the only one in the last 45, 46 years.
So I have Blackish kind of lower on my list for that. It really should have got in for that Hope episode.
So
if it gets in next year for writing or directing, I think it's on that upper trajectory and it's going to win next year.
Well, what about Silicon Valley? I mean, it's its 3rd season. It's actually watched. It's a companion piece to Veep, but it has a higher audience than Veep. It's got those crucial directing and writing nominations. It's about sort of, you know... It's,
and not just one of each on writing and directing. It's got multiple, and got Thomas Middleditch in.
That's right.
Yeah, I think Silicon Valley does get lost in the shuffle of the discussion. I think we're grossly underestimating it. It is, you know, we talk about, you know, Transparent potentially as an alternative to Veep. But Silicon Valley is the second most nominated comedy of the year. It has 11 nominations. It got the multiple writing and directing nominations. It got an actor in this year, Thomas Middleditch, in the lead acting category. So it's also on the upward trajectory.
I have it in third place. I'm so happy Thomas got in. I mean, he really deserved it. And the fact that he didn't get in last year really shocked me, especially because there were 7 nominations last year. He didn't get in, but he kicked someone out. I think he kicked out Don Cheadle this year.
So I've seen some people in our forums compare Silicon in terms of its Emmy reception so far to another male-based HBO show, which was Entourage. It could get into comedy series. It could even win for a Jeremy Piven. It would occasionally get nominated for writing or directing, but it just never could get that top prize.
And then we were talking before we came on the air about Aziz Ansari and Master of None. I mean, he's got personally nominations, sort of writing, directing, performing, producing. I mean, it's talk about a multi-hyphenate. And is that his reward? All those nominations? I mean, we sort of said, is he the new Louis C.K.? And I guess Louis would win. He's won occasionally, for writing, but nothing else.
I could see Aziz winning for writing. That would make total sense to me in that comparison to Louis C.K. And it's getting sort of the same kind of nominations that Louis would get.
The problem with the show is it's not an ensemble show. Haven't we, in our studies, determined that only ensemble shows really win? Now, Veep, of course, has a dominant lead with Julia Louis-Dreyfus, but the secondary characters are spun out pretty largely. On Master of None, it's really the Aziz show, isn't it? But yet he's really cool, and he's a millennial now that matters. He is sexy in his way. He packs Madison Square Garden when he does his stand-up shows. And he overperformed in terms of Emmy nominations here. It's Netflix. It's really cool. So he's got that whole cool quotient going for him. I don't think he can win series, but I think he can win writing, as Chris said, or he can. That he's even a contender anyway for the acting award. I find it hard to believe he could beat Jeffrey Tambor, but I mean that he is more popular than the show, I would think. I don't know.
Netflix is the cool kid on the block right now, but until a Netflix show finally wins either comedy or drama, I'm gonna probably stick to sticking with an HBO show or a broadcast network show. In other words, I want to see it happen, and then maybe I'll predict it later.
But could it happen with Transparent? I mean,
I have it in second.
I mean, it's one of those shows that our Riley Chow does looks at all the guilds and where shows have done well with guilds, and Transparent's done very well with the guilds. It shows you that there's the breadth of its industry support. It isn't just Jeffrey Tambor.
It won the Producers Guild against Veep.
Yeah, exactly. So it feels very relevant. I mean, if Veep last year got a boot, it had two things going for it. It wasn't Modern Family, and I mean the presidential race was just starting. Now I think this year, as voting starts, I think people are like, oh my gosh, is that presidential race still going on? They're over politics maybe in a way. But Transparent is really of the moment. I mean, it reflects our changing culture.
Right. I have it in second. I think it's going to win actor, and I think Jill Soloway is going to win directing again for the second time in a row. If you win actor and director, why wouldn't you be considered for best series? So that's why I have it in second.
I think it's a real contender for series. I think it's building nicely. And remember, its victory last year for Jeffrey Tambor was an earthquake at the Emmys. It was the first time a streaming service has won a major category at all. So, wow, that's a breakthrough. And Amazon has been very, very savvy and aggressive about campaigning, reaching out to the industry to drum up support for their shows at the Emmys. So I think all of and this whole point of guilds that Paul and Riley bring up it's really important, because that tells us where the industry support is, and it's got profound, expansive support across the industry. So yes, I think it's a real contender. It's like second on my list too for series, but it's in the mix.
And the fact that it's sort of streaming, there's a new season, right? Like that.
It's coming up in September, I think.
Yeah, so they're talking about that one already. They're out there doing press for the upcoming season, and I think that really helps. But back to Netflix, I look at Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Oh,
which I
my
think
favorite show. Yeah.
I know, but Tom, you must have been disappointed on nomination morning. It didn't do as well as I'm sure you would have liked if it's your
Right.
favorite
The number
show.
of nominations was down, but Ellie Kemper got in. That was very important. So in terms of the star of the show, Kimmy herself, she made it in. And I think there's just an unflagging love for the show. It's upbeat spirit, it's silliness, it's kind of classic comedy. It looks like very much like a broadcast network show, but yet done.
Which it was supposed to be, right? I mean, Tina Fey went to NBC with it first, so yeah.
Which is delightful. It's just delightful.
Yeah. And then in terms of broadcast shows, I just wanted to give I know you're all gonna roll your eyes, but I mean I think there is a possibility for Modern Family to rally, to make a comeback. I mean, we've had that historically at the Emmys. All in the Family came back to win again after having won a few and then been other shows won in its stead. Chris, I think you mentioned Cheers has done that a couple of times. I mean, there's a chance for Modern Family, a chance. I mean, okay, I can see. I'm just. I thought the screens were frozen, but you're all stony faced.
It really shocked me in nominations. I think it only got 4, which is by far the lowest it's ever gotten, and no writing and no directing. But I mean, the Academy loves this show. It won 5 in a row, and I predicted it last year. I thought it would win last year for this record-breaking 6th win, and I ended up being wrong.
But do you think that now with this ballot, with only needing it's a single check mark. I mean, you could get to 18% of the people if it splits. I mean, we've talked about each one of these nominees and made a credible case for them winning. I mean, it's. I don't think it's the slam dunk we think it is. That we thought it was on nominations morning for Veep.
Let's explain what Paul has just mentioned here, and that is there's a change in the voting now. It used to be that you, as a voter, would rank the nominees 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then the contender with the lowest score would win. They would tally up. This was a weighted system. Now it's an outright just pick a winner system. Voting begins on
popular vote, essentially.
Yeah.
Well, and it makes it less strategic. I mean, if you were, let's say, a transparent fan, you might if you thought Veep was the biggest competition, you might put Veep in last before.
So now there's no strategery. There is only pick your favorite. That's why Veep's ratings are not that high. Not a lot of people watch the show, but within the Academy, it is clearly a favorite.
And it's very prestigious, and it's HBO, and it's got it's got Julia Louis-Dreyfus, obviously a proven Emmy darling, and it's witty, and it's Frasier-like in that sense. It really it's that what Tom always says about the snob appeal. It's got that snob appeal. And it's got some heartbreaking moments in the season. There's some drama, some gravitas.
This was their best season. Yeah. I've seen every episode of Veep. This was by far their best.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was very, very good, and it was a big risk, of course, creatively this year because they lost their showrunner. They changed the creative talent at the top, and then gave us a very different show in a way, right? Marcus is much more crude this year and full of cuss words and short tempers and in a way that far less likable. Not that this crowd was that likable in the past, but they took a chance, and I think it works really well.
Right.
If a few days after the Emmys are over and we're looking back, and let's say it's lost, could that be a reason? Could it turn off some people that might used to have liked it?
We'd have to ask that question if it happened, yeah.
And also, he's promised that next year will be different than this year. There isn't.
She's out of office now, and she'll be a private citizen.
Yeah. So which is very sort of promising. But even with the shift to this popular vote, I mean, when we look down the list in the past, they do love reruns at the TV Academy, right? I mean, if you win, like your Modern Family, you break 30 Rock's 3-year winning streak suddenly is replaced by Modern Family winning for 5. So.
The interesting thing about this category, though, you had the Modern Family 5 most recently, and then 30 Rock 3 before that, so 8 years in a row. But that time frame before, the early 2000s, it was a different show every year.
Yeah.
I mean, if we also look back a couple of days after the Emmys and Veep is lost, we might say, are we in a new cycle? are they wanting to now reward different shows along the way?
But I think, right, a few of those shows that did win, in like One Time Friends and all that, were winning because they'd finally stopped giving it to Frasier, right? Like, so it was, Frasier had that stranglehold.
Right, but it made me think at the time maybe things do go in cycles, and maybe they were so sick of a Frasier long win cycle, which we just have with Modern Family. Maybe now they want to go to in the early 2000s you had Sex and the City, Ally McBeal, Will and Grace, Friends, Office. They all won one time only,
right?
All in a row.
And let's point out the differences in the voting system in the past 20, 30 years, and that is up until the year 2000, we had voting panels in hotels at the Beverly Hilton. You would go according to peer group, and you would sit in a room and you would watch a sample episode from each of the actors. But for comedy and drama series, there were different systems. They would either submit 1 or 2 episodes, and that's how a Picket Fences would win drama series, for example. It was just so it had such great emotional impact. 1 episode that it was able to beat NYPD Blue when it was the hottest show on TV, and had 26 Emmy nominations and just set a new record, but still managed to lose and lost to Picket Fences. That judging panel in the hotel rooms up till the year 2000 gave us some curious winners, which I kind of like. But then you go from 2000 to 2015, where we had a different system, and that was the at-home voting. So again, people would submit sample episodes to the voters, but they would go to people at home. And so the voting process the involvement of the Academy members went up dramatically when they didn't have to actually sign up for panels and go. It went from about 1,500 people participating at the Academy to about 5,000 people of the general membership, which was up until recently it was like 15,000. And then in the last year or so, they've expanded to 20-some thousand members in the Academy now, and they've opened up the voting to a more popular ballot. People are still supposed to watch sample episodes, but now every member of the acting branch can vote in every acting category. For example, I'm an Emmy voter. I'm allowed to vote in every program category. So it's no longer selective. It was in previous years. If you were a member of, just a general member like I am, then you would vote for comedy series. You would have to promise to watch the episodes. You would sign up and volunteer. It was always just 1,000 or 2,000 people that would end up voting for comedy series or drama series, and then you'd only get 2 out of the 6 episodes submitted. So the producers would send 6, would choose 6 as their best, divide it into 3 sets of pairs, and randomly distribute them to the voters. And so that's was the process by which Veep didn't win in the past. Last year, the voting system changed to a more popular ballot where everybody in the Academy votes for every program award. You're supposed to watch sample video. As a matter of fact, that was distributed yesterday. All of us got a little key into a streaming site where we can go in and now watch the episodes. But the question is, are they watching them? They were watching them in the past. I'm not so sure they're watching them now. It is not policed, and the numbers are bigger. So the whole point of this speech I'm giving you is that just last year and this year we're in a whole different voting system, so it may not apply so much to say, well, this is what they did in the past.
Well, I want to ask one question too there. Veep and Game of Thrones won last year under the new system, but they also hit at just the perfect moment where they might have won under the old system too, because everything else that had been winning was getting really old, and these were really peaking with the public as well as the industry. So only having 1 year of data, I don't know that we know how Veep would have fared even a year. I don't know. I think they would have won anyway.
I agree.
So, Tom, since you're a voter, are you going to reveal what you would vote for Best Comedy?
No.
Sure, once I make up my mind. I haven't voted yet. What should I vote for?
Do a write-in for Last Man on Earth.
I say this in our Slugfest all the time. We think we're the editors of Gold Derby with the best experts supposedly on the web, but really the best experts is somebody watching this Slugfest right now who's going to make their predictions. Somebody out there will do better than any of us when it comes to making the predictions as to the winners.
Oh, I know.
So
it's always
and one other thing I just thought of too on Veep is the last time it really won anything big anywhere was at the Emmys. It didn't do well at the Globes. It didn't do well at SAG Awards. It got nothing at the recent TV critics. So I don't, it is the front runner, and it certainly looks like the front runner based on sheer number of nominations. But it might be ripe. We might be in another cycle where they go, you know what? We were sick of repeat winner year after year after year. Let's go into a cycle of, Transparent this year and Blackish next year, and we might be coming into one of those cycles. We just don't know yet.
Chris, what's your theory? I love the point you just brought up. What is your theory of why Veep has does so well at the Emmys but not the other awards? What's behind that?
Well, I know we'll do a drama slugfest another time, but Game of Thrones is the same way. Wins nothing at the Globes, wins nothing at SAG Awards. It got nothing at TCA last week. I don't know. I think you have had this theory about certain types of shows at the Emmys that seems to still hold forth, which is elitist kind of shows, which I think Veep falls into that. Not that it's an elite type of comedy, but it's about elite characters. I mean, you can't get more elite than the President of the United States and her staff, which was Frasier, which was
The
West Wing, which was... on and on. Modern Family was Family was elitist. Mad Men was elitist.
Absolutely.
Not in their content, but in their types of characters. And if they were portraying, either very intelligent or very rich type of people. So I don't know that. I mean, Veep has done okay. Julia's won at least once, I think, at SAG. It's never won an ensemble there. It's not gotten anything at the Globes. And TCA, I think maybe it won a little bit early on, but critics are the first ones, and Globe voters too, are the first ones to drop something after a couple or 3 years. So I think that hurts it there. Same with Game of Thrones. Anyway, I don't know. I think they're not performing well beyond the Emmys, but that's the big one. I mean, that's if you could only perform well at one place, that's the one.
Very interesting. Does anyone else have final thoughts? Comedy series.
And we want people to predict, so our odds will change, and it'll give me a chance to steal your predictions at the end of when we're wrapping up on Emmy Eve.
I think I'm going to vote for Kimmy Schmidt. I don't know. I'll see. I'm fickle that way. All right, thanks for watching. We're going to do a separate chat right now about the acting races. Thanks.